Yo guys, Spiderbot here. I posted a couple videos last week called Die Right Secrets where I talked about time travel, I talked about alternate realities, how the group of four got from transit to die rides, etc., what our thoughts were, and it related back to Max's diary, right? And I talked about in the second video that I wanted to discuss in this video, number 3, where I thought the DLC was going and how things were going to unfold, the nav card table, the towers, etc. So that's what I want to do here. First thing, though, I know we posted a video yesterday about the supposed image of orientation, which again, as I specified in the video, that we figured it was kind of fake. But we still wanted to bring it to you guys. Another poster image has been found today, apparently. And it looks like, no, it's not orientation, it's induction, if we believe this one. We got some images here. Apparently, the zombies map is Paris, and that has been a rumor for some time that people thought, well, there's a tower in Paris, so it's got to be Paris. Well, what are you talking about? These towers are like, this is just little radio towers. I mean, yes, we had a larger tower on transit. We had a little, radio tower on the top of the building in Die Rise. It doesn't mean that, oh, we got to have the Eiffel Tower next as the next tower that we're going to power for completion of these Easter eggs. I mean, if that's your basis for saying it's Paris, I don't know. I can scratch my head on that one. But anyways, again, we think this one's probably fake as well. We've got some map names: Return, Far Life, Light Rays, and Chaos. And supposedly an XM 2012 sniper. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but that is the latest poster image. I tell you, people go through a lot of trouble, if in fact, obviously one or both are fake. I mean, right? We have 2 of them now. At least one's got to be a fake, if not both of them. But it's amazing the trouble that people have gone through if they are both fake, just to troll the community. That's kind of fun. Whatever. Anyways, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Okay, so we're going to go back to Transit and to Green Run and talk a little bit about that. If you look up Green Run and check Wikipedia, Green Run was a secret U.S. government release of radioactive fission products on December 2nd to 3rd, 1949 at the Hanford Site Plutonium Production Facility. Now, we're talking Hanford, Washington, okay? Hanford, the town, there used to be a town there. It was a small agricultural community in Benton County, Washington. It was depopulated in 1943, along with another town called White Bluffs, in order to make room for this nuclear production facility, which is known as the Hanford Site, and we describe Green Run. You know what happened? They went in there. The government went in there and gave everybody in the town 30 days eviction notice. They said, "Hey, get the F out, because we're going to do some nuclear shit here." And every building was destroyed. And this is kind of interesting because it almost ties back into that orientation DLC with Dead High. Remember how I thought maybe it was a high school? Well, listen to this. The town was condemned by the federal government to make way for the Hanford Site. Like I said, residents were given a 30-day eviction notice on March 9th, 1943. So by April 8th, 1940, March is 31 days. They had to get out. Most buildings were destroyed, with the notable exception of the high school. It was used during World War II as a construction management office. The school still stands today, marred by its use during the years for SWAT practice, and can be seen from the Hanford tour bus operated by the U.S. government. Okay, so that's Hanford, Washington. Well, people had commented before, and I think there's some people out there that sort of made a correlation for the layout of the actual Hanford site and compared it to the layout in the bus depot, and it's very, very similar. It looks almost identical. The only issue is, and people have pointed this out also, if you go to the loading screen and look at where these maps are located, if you look at Nuketown, it looks like it's in Nevada. Transit is, west of that. It's Nevada, California, that area. Well, that doesn't make any sense if we're tying this back to Washington, which it obviously is. I mean, Green Run, this is the Hanford site, comparing the bus depot image to an overhead image of the Hanford site. I mean, it looks right. Well, if you go into the map, the multiplayer map called Express, and we're gonna do that right now. And we can go over to the where it has these the departure schedule, right, for the trains, the bullet trains, and you look at the time, destination, pit status, and we've got Burbank, Sylmar, Palmdale, Bakersfield, Hanford. Really? Okay. So Hanford is actually a city or a community or whatever, Hanford, California. I'm going to read you from Wikipedia. Hanford is an important commercial and cultural center in the south central San Joaquin Valley. Is that how you pronounce that? And some other details. Surrounded by communities that don't fall within the city limits. They use the same zip code, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I mean, there's not a whole lot of history with Hanford other than it was named from, you know, because of some guy who had the last name Hanford. And that was the same as the original, like the other Hanford in Washington. But kind of interesting when I was looking at this way back when, I mean, this was a while ago, I looked at this and did notice that you have Hanford here at 247 in between Bakersfield and Fresno. So, and maybe that's why it's located on the map. And it makes sense from a proximity perspective to Nuketown because, you know, we've had discussions that Marlton was at Nuketown. He was in the bunker, perhaps, and then made his way to the location of the Green Run and Transit. All right, so that's Transit and Green Run. All right, that's when Black Ops 2 released. Then we had the first DLC pack, and they gave us Great Leap Forward and Die Rise, located in China. And I did a video on this about Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap Forward of the People's Republic of China was an economic and social campaign of the Communist Party of China reflected in planning decisions from 1958 to 1961, which aimed to use China's vast population to rapidly transform the country from an agrarian economy into a modern communist society through the process of rapid industrialization and collectivization. So what the Chinese government tried to do was they tried to bring together and control agriculture. Private farming was prohibited. You couldn't farm privately, and it was crazy. Those engaged in it were labeled as counter-revolutionaries and persecuted. They got everybody to melt down all the metal and iron they could to create building materials. But the problem that they ran into, it ended in catastrophe because they didn't have enough food. Nobody was farming privately. They were trying to control everything, and they ran out of food. Millions, tens of millions of people died because of famine, because of starvation. Now, you can read much more about it if you go on Wikipedia or just look up Great Leap Forward, and you really get into it because there's a lot of material out there. And again, we covered it in a previous video a while ago when we knew that it was going to be called Great Leap Forward. But with the DLC, with the Great Leap Forward, and with Die Rise, we've seen a tie-in, right? Okay, so now we're in China. I mean, we've talked about it being in Shanghai or looking at the buildings and comparing it with existing buildings, etc. But it's still in China. We know it's in the future. So they're probably, Treyarch's playing on this Great Leap Forward concept. Great Leap Forward was an important thing in the history of China, and it was it partly helped define the country, similar to Green Run and Hanford, where they did a lot of this nuclear testing. And obviously, the arms race and everything in the Cold War, I mean, that's what it was all about. I mean, who had the biggest nuclear arsenal? China trying to, move ahead with industrialization and just completely failed with it. Again, another defining, pivotal moment in the history of that country, of China. And again, the map, taking the Great Leap Forward, I mean, we could, apply it with what we just discussed, but we can also apply, it's a Great Leap Forward because we're moving ahead in time to this location in Die Rise. So what I think, and what I think is trending here, and I know we only have 2 samples. I mean, we have the original release of Black Ops 2, then we have the first DLC. But I kind of see this going forward. We have 3 more DLC packs that we're going to see for Black Ops 2, at least, right? Maybe they'll surprise us with an additional one. Probably not, but hey, you can always dream, right? So what I think they're going to do is continue with this tie-in. We're going to be looking at, I think, my opinion for upcoming DLC is we're going to be looking at another country. We're going to be looking at another defining moment like Green Run, like Great Leap Forward. We're going to have some other defining moment in the history of that country that that the DLC is going to be based upon, and a location in that country that is going to have perhaps some sort of tie-in to that event in the history of that country. So, you know, and one of the, you know, some of the events that I think about are like Chernobyl in Russia, right? That's another defining event in the history of that country. Or the Fukushima nuclear plant meltdown in Japan. What I really find interesting is a couple of news articles that came out last week. One was about, and I'll put a link to the article in the description, tank at Hanford nuclear site leaking radioactive liquids, Washington governor says. And there's an article about, you know, they have these tanks that they just, when they were done all their nuclear testing, they, you know, you have this, all this nuclear, I'm not going to call it fallout, but sludge or whatever, they got to get rid of. It's waste, it's waste. And the half-life on these materials are just ridiculous. You know, it could be like 100 years or a couple hundred years, right? So they just put them in these tanks and then buried them. Well, I think they at least buried them, but supposedly there are some radiation levels that are you know, increasing on the site, indicating that some of these tanks are leaking, and that's a massive cleanup job. I mean, you got radioactive material leaking into the ground. That's not a good thing. You know, and I'm sure there's not a whole lot of population in close proximity to the site, but still, nevertheless, you've got increasing levels of radiation because of the leaking containers. And then the other article slash video that came out was this meteorite crash in Russia. This was like last week. Meteorite hits Russian Urals. Fireball explosion wreaks havoc. Over 900 injured. And there's videos. Again, the link is in the description. You know, what an interesting tie-in to this whole concept in COD Zombies with the meteors, element 115. Again, you know, are we going to see something in Russia? I think we will. I think we will definitely see something happening in Russia. And, you know, even if it was, let's say, the next map pack, I think they're going to try, you know, they'll try and tie in this meteorite event possibly. I know they probably have already made a lot of progress on the next DLC, but I'm sure they could tie in something to having to do with this meteorite in Russia, if in fact the next map pack is going to be based in Russia. Now, I'm not a historian. For those of you who may have more historical knowledge of other countries and events in those countries, you know, going from anywhere from the 40s to present day, leave some comments and let me know, you know, if you think there could be a linkage and a possibility for a DLC map, Zombies map location in that country based on those events. But, you know, hopefully, again, it's really hard to say with only 2 samples. I mean, if the third DLC, or the second DLC, sorry, or the third map that comes out is similar in nature, then for sure we'll be safe to assume that we do have a trend. You know, until then, we're just we're making an assumption, we're making a theory that there is that correlation, and that correlation is going to continue in the future DLC packs. Okay, so other than the location and the country, where do I see the DLC going? Well, there are a couple of things to look at. One are the nav card tables. Now, we've had 2 nav card tables, one on Transit, one on Die Rise. And we have nav cards that we've obtained close to spawn, very close to spawn, just around the corner outside of the bus depot in Transit, and I believe on the PDW 57 level, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, on Die Rise, which is, again, just outside of the spawn. So, you know, I suspect that the second DLC will also contain a nav card table. The nav card will be able to be found close to spawn. The nav card, again, the nav card from Transit was accepted in the Die Rise table. The Die Rise nav card was not accepted in the Transit table. So, again, it's hard to say. We're making a theory based on only a sample size of 2, but my feeling is that the nav card for Die Rise will be accepted in the next map nav card table, and we'll have nav card tables for the next 2 map packs, I think. So 2 map packs, and then what I think is going to happen, that last, or the second last map pack, possibly, maybe it'll continue to the final one, but my feeling is possibly only to the 3rd map pack, so we'd have 4 nav card tables in total. So whatever that 3rd map pack is, that nav card will be able to be inserted in transit. Now, what do I think is going to happen? Well, I mean, it may be a reward. It may be something that we get for having, you know, if we have the season pass and we've built all the nav card tables and we've inserted all the nav cards into them, maybe we get something as a reward. Or for people who have bought all the map packs, you know, I think it'll be separate from the final DLC because, you know, you're going to get, obviously, the final DLC, you're going to get your own map. I mean, people are going to pay for it. Because it's hard to separate. It's hard. It would be hard for Treyarch to give a reward only to those people who have purchased all the map packs, but obviously, again, that's incentive for buying them all, right? So, you know, people want that reward, they'd have to go back and buy all the other DLCs. So I think possibly maybe it's going to be some kind of reward that's separate from the final DLC. I don't know. I mean, there's so many things that it could be, so many ideas that I'm sure Treyarch could come up with for tying in the nav card tables. And I also think that the next 2 map packs will have the maps will have towers that we have to power that will be able to power both from Richtofen's side and from Maxis' side. Now, as far as the final DLC, what I think the final DLC should, you know, would be an epic battle location for the final battle between Richtofen and Maxis. I mean, this story has to be closed. This story has to be concluded somehow. And, you know, I think as we go along here, we're powering up the tower for both either Richtofen or for Maxis, and then the final DLC is when they finally battle it out. Kind of similar to what we did on Moon, but I think it's got to be, I think it has to be a little bit more epic. I mean, I can almost see, you know, if I didn't think that we need another map just because we pay for DLC, I would personally like to see it go back to Derice, this in the final DLC. But, you know, that wouldn't be sufficient for me as a buyer of DLC to have the last map that I pay for be a rehash of an existing map. I mean, maybe that is the reward portion, but it would be the perfect location, I think, or a reimagined Derice for Maxis and Richtofen to have that final battle, and we do, you know, it's the final Easter egg, and they have this battle, and maybe it would be pretty cool if you could have an epic cutscene where they battle it out, and depending on whose side you take, that, you know, that character would win over the other, and then we'd have some sort of result. But I really hope they're going to go to town with this. I hope they you know, culminate in something epic at the end of this, because it's been a little bit disappointing with the Easter eggs so far. I think that's the general consensus that I get from a lot of the comments. I mean, I'm not too keen on Transit. It's okay. I mean, we played it a lot, and that's the thing. Usually we'll play the maps a ton and then just get sick of them. In Die Rise, the same thing. Like, Die Rise to me is just a very easy map, and it's just not that interesting to keep going back and playing it. Which is why we haven't seen a ton of Die Rise gameplay from us, but I'm really hoping that that they end up going to town for the future DLC packs, and especially the final one. So, anyways, leave a comment about what you guys think. I mean, what do you guys think about the nav card table? What do you guys think about that linkage with the historic country events that help define the countries that we're talking about, with Green Run, with the Great Leap Forward, how that ties into the maps, and also where you see this going, where you see this end game going with the final DLC. And again, it goes back to Moon, the same sort of thing with Moon, but it has to be more epic. I mean, Moon, I thought was pretty good with the Easter eggs. Unfortunately, the whole Easter egg process was leaked because I don't know if somebody hacked it, which sucked, because it would have taken quite some time to figure that one out, but again, the whole process was leaked an hour after the DLC came out. So let's hope that doesn't happen on any of these future DLC packs. But really looking forward to it, and looking forward, I want to have a discussion with you guys in the video comments about where you see this thing going where you see the DLC going. You know, have you been happy with what we've had so far on Transit and Die Rise? And hey, whatever. We'll see what the next one is. But again, I do really think it's going to be linked to an historical event in another country, another part of the world. We'll see. All we can do is wait, right? Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm Spider, and I'm out.